you're feeding the machine with more qualified prospects and buyers that are going to get to value faster. And I think the faster you get customers to value, the better off everybody is.
Welcome to Revenue Insights. We're joined by revenue leaders from some of the highest growth companies. Together, we explore how they built their revenue teams, the journeys they've been on, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Revenue Insights is brought to you by Ebsta. We're an AI-first revenue intelligence platform designed to help you close more deals, retain more customers, and forecast better. Enjoy the podcast.
Hello, everybody. My name's Adam Roberts from Ebsta, and we're very, very delighted to welcome today Dan Sylvester from Sunday Sky. Dan, great to have you with us. We'd love to get things kicked off straight away. Hopefully we can add as much value today as we possibly can for our faithful listeners. Why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself, potted history of your career, and what you're doing today, and then we'll take the conversation from there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here. So yes, my name is Dan Sylvester. I'm the Senior Vice President of Revenue at Sunday Sky. Sunday Sky is a video personalization platform. So we enable organizations and our users to really create, personalize, and distribute video across the full customer journey. So as you think about consumers' demand and consumption of video content, we believe it's imperative for businesses of all shapes and sizes to really enable their organizations to deploy a messaging strategy that's driven by a video-first approach. At Sunday Sky, I'm responsible for sales, customer success and account management, and partnerships. So I've been with Sunday Sky going on almost 8 years. So I've had a really great career. I initially joined and was recruited to lead our mid-market practice, and have since grown to lead the go-to-market strategy for the full organization. So again, really excited to be here with you, Adam, and excited to dive in.
Fantastic. It's clear that you've had quite a diverse amount of experience across multiple different functions leading to where you are today. What drew you to Sunday Sky and the world of personalized video content?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I was, before joining Sunday Sky, I was long tenured in my career, and was really looking for a new challenge, was looking to, really step into, a new foray. And the opportunity to join Sunday Sky came to me, former co-founder and chief technology officer, who was dead set that Sunday Sky needed to really, evolve its go-to-market strategy and work towards a down-market approach. So, at the time, it was really a team of two that was set to prove that, the opportunity to win was different than maybe the company initially set out to. So the opportunity to really, I think, build was something that was exciting for me at Sunday Sky, and not only the opportunity to build, but really learn from people a lot smarter than me was really the ultimate draw. But I'm a builder, so anything that involves really building out a plan and having an hypothesis and testing and then learning and then optimizing and scaling, those are the things that really drive me day to day.
Interesting. What are the key takeaways that you would kind of really look back and point to as being the big things that gave you the most success over those 8 years?
And I think it's just results. I think it's driving results, and the results aren't always going to be great, right? I mean, they could be, potentially suboptimal, but I think the better you are and the more prepared you are, and the more opportunity you have to kind of really define your known knowns and unknown knowns, if that makes sense. But it's the ability to just drive consistent results. And when you're on track, scale, when they need to be, optimize, the ability to course correct with quick time. So fail fast is a key theme in everything I do. And again, the ability to do that at Sunday Sky has led to great success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think one of the things you said at the start was that you have this oversight through marketing, sales, and the customer as well. We live in a world where, customer experience seems to be everything. But obviously those functions can sometimes operate in silos. What's your take on keeping those functions aligned and how you strive to do that in your current role?
And just one point of clarification. So marketing, I don't oversee marketing, but obviously partner very closely with my partners in marketing. But I think it's a great question, and I think it's something that Sunday Sky, was struggling with for some time, and it really all everything comes out in the wash as it relates to value. And I think when, organizations have a value position, and that value position that those organizations have is different than customers' value expectation, and then their opportunity to actually realize value, when those three things aren't aligned, there's a lot of breakage and a lot of friction and a lot of missed expectations, which causes, harm to the business. So that's not just true for, you and your customer or prospect. That's true for you and your internal stakeholders and teams. You'd be surprised probably, if you ask, someone in marketing, someone in customer success, hey, what is our value position? You'll probably get three probably different answers. So the better you can be at really aligning to the North Star of the value that you deliver, and then making sure that bleeds through from top of funnel messaging through the sales process, through customer success, is what drives efficiency in the sales process, but what also drives advocacy. So I think for us, the biggest unlock was really taking a hard look in the mirror and aligning the organization around our value position to ensure that it met the expectations of our prospects and customers, and that they could achieve those value outcomes.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. I think, one of the things that we see, we're a scaling technology business that has, had its pivot, 3 or 4 years ago. We have a legacy customer base and a new customer base, and really making the messaging as clear and as consistent across sales, marketing, CS is that key to unlocking scalability and growth, right? If you're not absolutely locked into the value that you can provide, it's very difficult to manage customers at scale. 100%.
It's not trivial, right? I mean, it sounds obvious, but it is usually the systemic issue with most go-to-market organizations is just the misalignment on the actual value that customers expect, and that you're positioning intentionally or unintentionally from marketing through sales. And as those expectations are set, they're hard to undo. So the importance of that alignment is, I think, probably the most important thing for any business to be able to achieve and ensure that there's tight alignment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've seen a huge change over 8 years. Not only at Sunday Sky, but we've seen a huge change in market dynamics and cost of capital, and the advent of AI. What are perhaps one of the two biggest changes that you've seen in go-to-market over the last decade?
Yeah. It used to be, again, growth at all costs, right? It used to be that you could scale just adding headcount. And I think those days are over. And I think no matter the market conditions, I think, there's been some gluttony around, the fat around go-to-market organizations. And I think, the last few years have been challenging for several, and they've had to do a lot more with a lot less, meaning people and headcount. So I think really it's about understanding the high valued activities that are required to be delivered by a person, and then begin to understand the customer journey, and when I say customer journey, I'm talking about top of funnel awareness through advocacy, all the things that can then begin to be either automated or addressed with process or scaled motions and resources. And as you think about that, those are the ingredients to drive efficient growth, efficient scale, is that the right combination of people and technology that supports, your customers, your users, their ability to, again, have those value realization outcomes, on their own. But I think, for me, I think what's been most exciting is really taking a look at, the customer journey and kind of understanding what could be addressed with, a digital first or a scaled model, right? And then the surprising outcome is that customers and users, they prefer that in some cases. They don't necessarily want to get on a call and have a discussion with a customer success manager. They'd rather figure it out on their own. And there's certainly opportunities when they do want to have that opportunity to engage with your team and either learn about the latest and greatest or understand how to better apply best practice. So I think it's really being maniacal about, again, the critical activities that are best served by a person, and then leveraging technology, leveraging AI to drive efficiency and scaled motions to support, overall efficient growth in an organization.
Yeah, like I completely agree. We, as sales, we go to market in a slightly different way. The customer's also buying in a slightly different way, right? Advent, G2 crowds, it's just like Amazon reviews. The way we buy as consumers, we're starting to see that bleed across the consumer to B2B lines, right? You have access to reviews for information. You can understand what your peers are thinking and feeling and saying about products very, very easily. And you kind of have to be where your buyers are, right? And mold your journey to their requirements. And AI is helping to do that and helping to bridge some of the gaps that we currently have.
Yeah, and I think just one other point there is it's very rarely that there's a single buyer, right? The evaluation committee really now consists of people above and below the line, and whether you're a solution that is workflow optimization and potentially your users, right, are the ones that are going to be the ones that are going to first experience both the pain and the opportunity to leverage value out of your solution, and then they're bringing it up to their decision makers to drive an evaluation process. But I think you have to be sensitive to the fact that you're really not selling to a single buyer. It's typically an evaluation committee that, again, isn't just procurement and the line of business owner that you're selling to. It's likely people that are above and below the line that all have some significant impact on the velocity of whether a deal gets done or not, or if it gets done at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We see this trend in personalization, right, which is becoming increasingly important for customer engagement. How has demand for personalized video content affected, how organizations approach their customer engagement?
Yeah. So as I kind of touched on earlier, right, I think the days of growth at all costs are probably gone forever. And I think organizations really understand that they need to automate and scale critical moments in their customer journey. And while they need to do that, it still has to be done with a human on the other receiving end of that in mind. And I think personalization is a key tactic to drive a great experience, right? It's not personalization for the sake of personalization. It's the ability to be timely and relevant in a moment when it really matters. And that could be onboarding a new customer and walking them through the steps they have to take to implement your solution, or in a QBR setting where you're reinforcing value to the above and below the line stakeholders, and personalizing it to each of those personas, or their functions, or the value aspects that they've benefited from. So as you think about the need to automate and scale, personalization has to be a key ingredient to doing it successfully. So from our perspective, one of our fastest growing industries or verticals has been software, B2B software. I mean, traditionally Sunday Sky, our core verticals are financial services and healthcare and telco. But software has really exploded because of the advent of like the growth of all cost days are gone, and we need to really think about enabling the same kind of personalized experience without a human there. So for us, it's been a core part of our business, since we were founded in 2008. But I think now more than ever, I think personalization has become much more available for all organizations, shapes of any shape and size, and whether it's through AI or whether it's through connecting, systems and sources together to drive greater yield on those investments. Technology is making it easier to do things like personalized video, and we see continuous, really growth and demand from customers that are looking to scale and still maintain a really, curated, personalized experience for each of the folks they're communicating with.
As a bit of a side note, I'm really curious to understand, obviously, video content being produced, the barrier to producing content has dropped dramatically with the advent of high quality, cheap cameras, video recording kit, all that kind of stuff. People taking their own license, doing it on themselves has become, hugely. It's very accessible for people to do their own content. How do you draw the line, or what's your take on the accessibility of content, people creating their own content within companies, and then using that and making sure that resonates with the brand message and the authenticity that you would want as a corporate entity putting video content out into the world? How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one kind of final note on the personalization piece, I think, you could have all the data, you could have all the insights in the world, but typically what we see is content as a typical bottleneck. Like the ability to actually take those data points, those insights, and then actually have the content to drive an effective communication is usually where, there's a bottleneck. So from our perspective, I think, one of the core pillars of our platform is that it's a platform designed for the non-video expert, right? So democratizing the creation of video is kind of core to our messaging, and the ability to enable, whether it's a CS manager, product manager, SDR, anyone can create video. But with that comes the need for control, right? The need for continuity. And as you think about some of the great tools out there, some of the challenges they have is that they don't have that kind of enterprise control on the message. So I think as you evaluate solutions for your business, I think it's critical that, dependent upon the business that you're in and the scale of your team, you want to have kind of control of message. And where we've kind of really found, and control of brand, right? And where we've really found really great outcomes is when there's alignment, again, from the team perspective, ultimate value message, right? Like what are we saying in the market, and how are we defending it, and how are we communicating it? And I think that the how, meaning the brand requirements, messaging, the tone, the assets utilized, those are all things that are a part of that story, and they all have to be accounted for, so that you're not, having everyone create a different version of an asset or different messaging that kind of creates confusion. So I think, like any workflow, there needs to be kind of clear standards and operating procedures as it relates to content creation. But the ability, it should help accelerate the creation. It shouldn't slow it down. So I think you lock in what's critical from a brand and messaging and communication perspective, and then kind of really enable repeatability through kind of clear workflow process. But I couldn't agree more that, again, the ability to create content easily has never been more accessible. So I think, again, you just need to exercise a little caution as you enable your teams and functions to be able to deploy that type of approach with the right solutions in place. I think, there's several of them out there that do a great job.
We'll return to the episode in a moment. This podcast is brought to you by Ebsta. Every year, we produce the B2B Sales Benchmarks Report. It provides insights from the analysis of billions of revenue dollars, revealing what attributes drive top sales performance and highlighting where time and money are wasted. To get early access to this year's benchmarks report, sign up for our newsletter at ebsta.com/newsletter. Now, back to Revenue Insights.
There's an abundance of content. We're all aligned on that. How do you guys think about measuring the effectiveness of content? You can create 100 pieces of content. One might get 1 million views, one might get 1 view. Like, outside of that viral element, how do you kind of evaluate the effectiveness? What frameworks are you using?
Yeah. And I think you need to have a really good success criteria for any of your content pieces, right? And it should start with the goals. What are we trying to achieve with this content? And those goals typically have kind of specific KPIs and metrics. So if you're looking to drive better support and service, it could be that you're looking at calls to your call center or number of tickets opened up based on the specific topic. But I think typically that's where businesses usually kind of fall flat first, is that they just don't have, they've got a goal in mind, but the messaging or the content doesn't necessarily drive that action or that outcome. I think having those specific KPIs is really critical, and it's got to go beyond the vanity metrics. It's got to go beyond the virality of content. Ultimately, if a million people see it, that's awesome, it's great, but how much did it actually impact the key metrics? So whether it's a sales related piece of content and the focus is qualified pipeline, being able to attribute and track the engagement with that content or the engagement with those ads to actual qualified pipeline, or if it's something beyond in the post-purchase journey, does the messaging and the topics in that messaging and the call to actions in that content, does it drive the goal that you set it out to drive, right? Does it resonate with the audience? But I think, again, from a technology perspective, you've got a lot more opportunity to understand engagement and impact and insights. It's just having the right metrics that move the needle, and then the right content aligns to actually those metrics to be able to move the needle.
If we put like video content specifically aside for a little bit, I'd love to get under the skin of some of the key tools and key frameworks that you're using to manage your customers at scale. I think everybody who's in B2B technology is starting to invest more in trying to make sure that the back door is shut and the churn rates are lower, that their customers are happy. I'd love to dig into a little bit Sunday Sky. Like, what are the key elements of your customer success tech stack, the processes that you use, the frameworks that you use to drive successful outcomes for your customers?
And again, I'll sound like a broken record, but right, I think it's like on a quarterly basis, ensuring that all of our artifacts and process are aligned to the right value alignment, right? So we believe we drive transformation and efficiency, ROI and impact, and those are defined in a very specific way. So how is our process? How is onboarding? How is the handoff process? How is it setting our team and our customers up to be able to quickly recognize those outcomes with time to value in mind as the key milestone? But I think the first work product that's an always on, living and breathing process is our customer journey, and really being intentional about the customer journey. And just like a sales process, right? You've got your internal nomenclature as it relates to sales stages and what you're expecting based on the activities and the outcomes and the next steps. But you also have to look at it through your prospects or your customers' mind. What are they expecting there? And ensure that you're mapping that process to their expectations. So from a post-purchase perspective, the living and breathing customer journey work we do, I think, is critical, and gating and staging that through what obviously is good for Sunday Sky, but also what's good for our customers. And how we measure that is through really defining the ideal customer behaviors in each of those stages. So working with our product teams cross-functionally to ensure that we've got visibility to the right level of data and insights and usage, and then to actually plot those. And then on a always on basis, have a feedback loop that really kind of surfaces risk outside of the customer success or account manager sentiment based on their activities and their relationship with their accounts. But how is that translating to what we know to be true from an ideal customer behavior perspective to ensure that they're actually experiencing that value? So I think first and foremost, it's really having a clear customer journey. It's cross collaboration with product, with sales and account management and success, from handoff through to advocacy, and being intentional about your ideal customer behaviors. But from a process and from a product perspective, or should I say a system perspective, having great tools to help you automate that, to report on that, to track activities against that is critical. So we use Tatango and are using Tatango both from a customer health perspective, so scoring customer health as an input, but also Tatango really automates and deploys a lot of our digital first and scaled motions. So kind of a proactive and reactive triggered solution that allows us to communicate content to our users and our customers as they go through milestones of their customer journey. But in addition, we get together on a biweekly basis and we look at how our health scores are either in harmony with some of the ideal customer behaviors and product health scores or usage health scores that we see. But again, I think too many times people look at a single set of data, could be usage data, right? And the usage data looks really great, but actually, if you spoke to the CS or account manager, they've not had an executive business review or they've not achieved their business objectives. So you need to be able to marry those things on a consistent basis frequently to ensure that your customers and your stakeholders are achieving the outcomes they expect with your solution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I was working with Guy the other day, actually, on our 2025 Ebsta benchmarks report. And, one of the key themes that we saw, particularly on the customer side of the house, was that while it takes about 8 stakeholders on average to get a net new deal done, it takes on average 5 stakeholders to maintain a customer. So you still need that constant multi-threading. You can't just rely on a happy CSM or an engaged, champion in your organization who sees value. You need to make sure that value is then communicated throughout the stakeholder landscape at the other side, because we are in an environment where people are cutting costs, and you need to make sure that value is demonstrated and communicated.
Totally. I mean, that's great. And I also think organizations spend a lot of money and time and resources on enablement, right? And field enablement for their sales team, their success account management teams to be able to talk effectively about their solution. And I think where there's sometimes a miss is that there's not as much intentionality thinking about enablement from a user and a customer perspective. To your point, it takes five people to make a decision on a renewal. And if one or two of those people, they're not able to kind of clearly articulate the value, and not to say they haven't experienced it, they're not trained when their CFO says, well, how is this delivering impact? And they're like, well, we've done X, Y, and Z, and that doesn't really have much, meat to the bones. Like you're probably not in a great place. So the importance of testing and enabling your customers and your users on the value they're achieving or not achieving is critical to ensuring that you've got a predictable business.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And it goes right back, as we said right at the very start of this conversation, it goes right back through marketing and through sales as well. Because if you're not articulating the value at each of those stages, we can't communicate that value on the other side when they're customer side. So completely into that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things we did was we really took a look at our ICP, and everyone's got an ICP from a firmographic perspective, but there's another layer that I think that probably is not done enough as it relates to your ideal customer profile. And there's a uniqueness about the way that you maybe solve a problem, or there's a hierarchy of the value that you're able to deliver, right? And you could deliver 3 or 4 or 5 different types of value outcomes, right? But I'm sure there's probably some sort of hierarchy in which you're delivering value in a much more meaningful way, or a much more clear way, or a much faster way. And as you think about the market and you think about your ideal customer profile, there's pockets of those customers or those prospects that probably have either much stronger pain or prioritizing value in a much different way, maybe than another financial services companies based on your solution. So I think as customers or as companies are able to spend a bit more time and put more rigor and more definition around their ideal customer profile outside of the firmographic, financial services, 100 million to $1 billion, VP marketing, like there's And it's rooted in value. As you're able to do that and surface those and build common language internally around those, and then identify the observable attributes of those things, you're feeding the machine with more qualified prospects and buyers that are going to get to value faster. And I think the faster you get customers to value, the better off everybody is.
Really aligned with those comments, Dan. We take ICP seriously here at Ebsta, and one of the things that we go into beyond those firmographic data, what's the velocity of look like against all the deals that seem to fit the firmographic data of our ICP? Which personas are we talking to? I think a lot of businesses struggle because they don't have all the data inside CRM. And one of the big problems, the big challenges with CRM is getting sales reps to put data in. And one of the easiest fixes is to automate that process. And it's something that quite often goes unlooked. But when you're making decisions as a leadership team with a CRM system that's 50-60% complete, it can be misleading, and it's one of the root causes of poor decision making or lack of focus or lack of clarity on exactly what ICP is. So really interested to hear that. I'd love to ask you sort of one final question. We've talked a lot about AI. We've talked a lot about what you've seen over the last 10 years. What would you say the biggest challenge facing sales and go-to-market teams over the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I honestly still think most of the challenges that go-to-market teams are from internal misalignment. And I think the quicker and faster that you could get all of your internal stakeholders, and that from the board right to the individual contributor, the faster that you could get those people aligned is the better off you're going to be. And again, that is a boulder and a mountain of a task. So I think ensuring that the internal stakeholders are aligned is critical. Like nothing else matters. You'll continue to be inefficient and fail long term if you're not driving that alignment. But I think AI is certainly going to, empower buyers as much as it's going to empower go-to-market teams, which is a good thing. So I think leaning into how to, drive better efficiency, better decision-making, whether it's in your forecasting, whether it's in your activities, like you have to embrace AI. That's critical. But I also think there's just such a tremendous evolution going on right now in customer success that it, to me, is most exciting. And I think how companies look at, kind of different functions, success, account management, what do they all mean? What are they all doing incrementally to each other? How many people are you forcing your customers and your buyers to get familiar with on a regular basis? And how much of that is just because that's how things were? Like, I think there's an opportunity to really drive some exciting transformation in customer success, and we're seeing it today. But I think, continuing to enable your organization to, efficiently grow, the ability to, staff the team appropriately, to give them the right tools to be successful is critical. A lot of the tried and true channels are not necessarily working as they once were, right? Whether it's your SEO or your email prospecting strategy or, whatever that may be. So I think there's an opportunity to really kind of take a look at your marketing tactics and your marketing channels, and really look at the incremental value they're driving back to the business, and try to deploy tests and different strategies to help with demand creation and generation.
It's a very broad question, right? So broad answer is absolutely fine. I think one of the key things that I certainly think about is, again, we've touched already upon the fact that growth at all costs is dead. And I think in the advent of AI over the last sort of 10 years, we've seen, lots of SaaS businesses explode and grow, technology businesses explode and grow. And I think one thing that, broadly speaking, the industry has been slightly guilty of is selling features and functionality and these new cool shiny tools, and we can do this and we can do that. And what people have neglected maybe is perhaps that they're buying an outcome, right? It's not that we're buying this new feature. It's buying what this new feature, the outcome, the business impact, the benefit, and the value that we provide, that it provides as your business. And I think one of the things in CS particularly is actually businesses need to get better at communicating and demonstrating that value, as opposed to this is how the feature works. And you're right, like you need to draw on all of those data points to evaluate the health of the customer and understand their behaviors, because adoption in itself isn't necessarily a singular interpretation of whether a client's going to renew or not. Absolutely buy into that. Absolutely buy into that.
Yep. That's great. I mean, I think, right, it's compulsory almost. People have to adopt. And if they don't adopt, then there's a bigger issue. But adopting isn't recognizing value. So I think it's a great point.
Absolutely. Look, one final question before we wrap this up. Maybe this will be a takeaway for our audience. What is the one single piece of advice that you have leaned into your entire career, and ideally one that you wouldn't see posted 1 million times on LinkedIn?
It's not going to be groundbreaking, but I think you have to know your business. Like if you don't know your business, you don't know your metrics, like don't point at anyone else's house until yours is really, really tidy and clean. And I think it starts again with like, what are the core metrics that you're delivering on? And I think what are the expectations that you're setting? I think early on in my career, certainly guilty of happy years and thinking that we would, overshoot the moon, right? And you missed, right? And that's okay. But I think set realistic expectations, with all of your stakeholders, because if you set unrealistic expectations, your board and owners will not be happy when you miss them. And your team, your individual contributors that, you set up to achieve those will feel like, they failed or they've lost, when that might not be the case. So I think it's set realistic expectations and be honest with those expectations, and have those expectations be born from data that you've tested and collected, and metrics that the organization is aligned to, that are the critical ones for your area of the world, whether that's customer success and driving ideal customer behaviors, or whether that's a new logo seller who's, expected to drive a certain win rate percentage, or marketing. I mean, it's critical that, the right expectations are set. And so.
Dan, listen, thank you very much for your time. It's been a fantastic conversation. Hopefully everybody listening has taken at least 10 pieces of value from the chat we've had. From Ebsta's point of view, thank you very much for your time and joining us today. If there's any parting gift you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap this up, then feel free to do.
No, Adam, thank you. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed the conversation. I just think it's a very exciting time to be in software and the SaaS industry. SaaS is dead. That's not true. SaaS will continue to grow and evolve like every other industry, and we're in for an exciting next several years. So, everyone just hopefully they got some value. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate the conversation. Enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining, Dan. Take care, and we will see you soon.
Thanks for listening to Revenue Insights from Ebsta. If you want to learn more from some of the brightest minds on how to predictably and efficiently grow revenue, then subscribe to our newsletter. We'll deliver actionable insights straight to your inbox. Go to ebsta.com/newsletter. See you soon.